Hi everyone, my name is Ben and this video is about how to generate compassion. If you're a Buddhist, I hope it's a useful reminder. If you're not a Buddhist, then I hope it will be useful. This is the second of 4 videos on what are called the 4 immeasurables in Tibetan Buddhism. The last video was on how to generate love, and this is about how to generate compassion. So the first question I think we need to talk about is why bother generating compassion anyway? Because we're all busy, we've got a lot to do. Why dedicate time and resources to generating compassion? And the answer is very simple. It's because generating compassion helps us and it helps other people. It helps us because if we are generating compassion, we are focusing on others. We're not going to be so worried about these tiny little things in our lives which seem really important until we start thinking about other people who actually have more problems than we do and who we should be trying to help. So when we are outwardly focused on other people, on other beings, then we will suffer less because we'll be less concerned about our own, frankly, quite small things. I'm not saying all our problems are small, but a lot of them are, and we dedicate a lot more time to small problems than is necessary. And the end result of focusing on others, on helping others, is that we will be more free. Because if we're focusing on the problems of others rather than worrying about our own problems, we will be less concerned with the small things that are bothering us, and we will be more free. So that's how it helps us. It helps others because, of course, we will help them more if we feel more compassion for them. That's the obvious way it will help others. The other way it might help others is directly. If we wish very strongly to help others, I believe that that will directly help them. So that is why we practice compassion. It's a very important part of the Buddhist tradition. But even if you're not a Buddhist, I think that those are some good enough reasons to start trying to generate just a little bit more compassion in our lives. Secondly, I want to talk about what compassion is in this particular context. So compassion is talked about a lot in Buddhism. There's a lot of emphasis on compassion, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism and other Mahayana Buddhist traditions. If you don't know what Mahayana is, don't worry about it. It's just a particular tradition of Buddhism. So there's a lot of emphasis on compassion, and it can mean slightly different things in different contexts. In this context, in the context of the 4 immeasurables, compassion means 2 things. It means the wish for other beings not to suffer, and it also means the wish for other beings not to create the causes of suffering for themselves in the future. So the first of those is pretty simple. It's a desire that other beings cease to have suffering, that their pain, their physical pain, their emotional pain, all their difficulties dissolve, and that they're free of them. That's fairly straightforward. The second part is a little bit more involved, and it sounds a little bit more religious or karmic. So let's unpack it a bit. From a Buddhist perspective, the reason we suffer is because we have in the past caused others to suffer, and particularly because we have had and expressed the 5 negative emotions, and those are anger, clinging, ignorance, envy, and pride. So from a Buddhist point of view, in the past we had those emotions, we expressed those emotions, we caused others to suffer, and as a result we created karmic causes which lead us to suffer now. Now that does sound a bit far out if you're not a Buddhist. I do appreciate that, okay? But even if you're not a Buddhist, you probably agree that if someone is very angry in their lives, if they go around expressing anger and being angry with other people, they're likely to suffer in the future because people will resent them, people will stop being their friends, people won't want to interact with them, and so on. And that will cause the angry person suffering. So even if you don't buy into the karma stuff, it's quite obvious, I think, that people who have these conflictive emotions, as they're called in Buddhism, create the causes of their own future suffering. So the second part of compassion is wishing for other beings not to create the causes of their future suffering. So in other words, for them not to feel and express anger, clinging, pride, envy, ignorance. In terms of how to do it, we're going to do a very, very simple meditation. There are lots and lots of techniques within Buddhism. There's a technique called Tonglen, which I'm going to do a video on in the future, which uses quite a lot of visualization. But today I just want to do something very, very simple. We're going to sit in silence in the correct posture, and we are going to wish that a particular being, and you can choose who it is. It could be someone you love, it could be someone you don't like, it could be anyone you like. We're going to choose a particular being, and we're going to wish for all their suffering to cease. And then we're going to expand that out to other beings. So it's helpful to bring to mind a visualization of this person. And when we broaden it out, if you can visualize other beings, that's great. If you can't visualize, if you find that difficult, don't worry, because what's most important is the intention. So if your visualization is not stable, don't worry. The important thing is to generate the wish for them to be free of suffering and the wish for them not to create the causes of future suffering. So let's just do a little bit of that for 1 minute. First of all, straight back. That's the most important thing about posture. If you're sitting on a chair, it's good to have your feet flat on the ground. The main thing is to have a straight back, because that means we'll have less aches and pains in the meditation itself. And now, if we just bring our attention very gently to the breath. So we just notice the breath. We're not trying to alter the breath or judge the breath. We just notice the breath. And now bring to mind a person who you know is suffering. They could be the victim of physical illness, or they could be the victim of some kind of mental, emotional affliction like anger or pride or jealousy. And when you have that person clear in your mind, just wish from your heart for all their suffering to disappear. Just wish that all that anger or jealousy or fear or whatever it is just dissolves and they're free of it forever. And now just gently extend that wish to other beings. All beings suffer, all people suffer, all animals suffer, all beings suffer. Just gently wish for all of them to be free of suffering. And now, holding all those beings in mind, the original being and all other beings, just wish that they don't create the causes of future suffering. Just wish that they don't create in themselves anger or clinging or ignorance or envy or pride. Just wish for them to be kind and open so that they don't create the causes of future suffering for themselves. And now gently return your attention to the breath. And gently end the meditation. So that's a very, very simple way to generate compassion. You can do that practice formally, as we've just done, taking the time to sit down, sit in the correct posture, and then make those wishes. Or you can do this informally. So if you see someone who's suffering or you hear about someone who's suffering, you can just wish gently for them not to suffer and not to create the causes of future suffering. I hope this video has been useful. If you like it, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Please feel free to share it on social media. I'd be very, very grateful. Thank you very much.